She starts by saying the Gothic tradition saw most clearly and portrayed brilliantly what we had always known, the way the perils of the soul in its darkest night reflect, in magnified and revealing forms, the realities of life in the daylit worlds of money, work, and social rank. And then she goes on to say that the Gothic vision has from its beginning been focused steadily on social relations and social institutions, simultaneously with a focus on the most private demons of the psyche. Does that seem to you a bit, is that what you're doing with Harry, do you think, in this
I think
book?
it is. I mean, I have to say that actually, in common probably with a lot of writers, I don't actually think about what I'm doing when I'm doing it, of course. I don't think this is what I'm trying to achieve, but it is what happens, because certainly whenever one creates a story which is going to involve mystery, then you're talking about people in conflict with one another, and the things that they are in conflict about tend to be money and social rank and position and jealousy and passion and all of those things. So by approaching, when you approach a mystery novel, you are approaching a heightened, condensed version of what life is all about. The mystery is a liberating influence because it enables you to actually shake up these relationships and see what happens when people are no longer able to hide behind rank, privilege, money, whatever. That's the true appeal of it. The conflict between the characters is often, and certainly so with Harry, is often a conflict engendered by somebody being forced to confront somebody else who they would normally be able to brush aside. So I certainly do agree that this kind of novel does focus on what is often hidden and often subdued, but can emerge through the context of the mystery, and those darker sides can be addressed.
I think I mentioned to you earlier, I've always been fond of Stephen King's quote about the kind of, and he writes a very exaggerated, I think, kind of book along these lines, but nonetheless he says it's a wonderful way of making people face the alligators.
Well, it's a wonderful way of doing that, and also it's a way of examining hypothetically and quite safely, really, as a reader, what would actually happen if, and
that safety is important, isn't it? That it allows us to be secure in our armchair by the fire, whatever it is, and then terrify ourselves with all those sort of, cold fingers and scary things, and then go to sleep safely, knowing that, in fact, the demons are on the other side of the door.
That's right. But the suspension of disbelief that is required to enjoy any novel means that while you're actually reading it, it seems real. It's really happening.
One of the things I also think is interesting in novels that are not in the classic detective, whether it's amateur sleuth or private investigator, professional sleuth, is that there is not, sleuths like that tend to operate not only in a moral universe, but with some sort of code they've developed because they've been doing this several times, especially series characters kinds of sleuths.
Yes.
Somebody like Harry, this isn't what he does. I mean, this isn't a profession, and he probably hasn't, at least in his own self, codified his behavior, and it gives you a chance, I think, to do some interesting explorations that something more formulaic, more rigid doesn't get to do.
Well, I've never wanted to adopt a detective or a policeman or one character. I've always found it more interesting to deal with people who do have a recognizable career, although in the case of Harry, he's never had anything which could be dignified with the name of a career, but certainly some of the other characters have been distracted by their professional preoccupations from the story that they're trying to investigate, and that always struck me on a fairly simplistic level. Whenever I've been reading mystery novels, I've often thought, well, you don't have the freedom just to rush off and try and deal with this. There are other things that can distract you. In the case of Harry, he spends most of his time doing other things. I mean, this happened to him twice now in his life, and I think I might be able to squeeze out a third, but...
Well, that would be absolutely wonderful. Do you know one of the characters that I particularly liked was your architect?
In Take No Farewell.
Right. And he was somebody I was hoping that we might actually see come back, but then I'm not sure that repeating characters, well, maybe Harry, works for the kind of books that you like writing.
I'm not sure that I'm going to repeat any other characters apart from Harry, but I mean, I liked Staddon in Take No Farewell, which was also entitled Debt of Dishonour here.
Right.
He was a very interesting character, because one of the reasons I made him an architect was that I was interested in the architecture of the period, so it gave me a splendid opportunity to feed in a lot of material about architecture, and I enjoyed looking at Staddon and seeing how he dealt with disappointment, really, but how the disappointment gave an edge to his endeavours at a late stage to redeem the situation. Redemption is a sort of common theme of a number of the characters.
Absolutely. It's marvelous. I'm so jealous of people who have storytelling ability. I've often thought it would be, something I read the other day said that the urge to tell stories was in fact even more paramount than the urge to seek housing or food. I mean, it's just one of those major human conditions. And I think it's tremendous when people are able to, in their work, as you do, making it your work rather, give rein to that.
Well, I've always told stories. Before I wrote them, I was telling them from childhood. It's something that I've that's been with me for well, as long as I've been conscious, really. And essentially, it's about altering reality to make it more interesting for me and for other people, to inject variety into life. When I was a child, I was commissioned to read articles from the local newspaper to my grandmother, whose eyesight was failing, so that she would remain in touch with events in the neighbourhood, and I started altering the articles that I read to her because I wanted to just have a bit of fun. She would find out later that the dramatic events that I'd been relating to her had not actually occurred. But even at that point, I was dealing with trying to make things authentic and also trying to heighten reality. So I suppose it's just something that my mind inevitably turns to doing, and the product of that is all these stories.
Body of work we see. Well, we're certainly pleased that you were able to come and share it with us, and I live from year to year hoping for a new novel by Robert Goddard. And it's really been a great pleasure to have a chance to meet you personally after having read your books for so long. And thank you very much for joining us for another episode in our criminal calendar.